Hi AB Calculus class. We are working on the 2017 question number 2 test. It's an ET and LT question. I recommend watching the ET-LT video that I've attached first and then try this problem before coming and looking at the answers. It's not a bad problem and we're going to jump into it. It's about the easiest ET-LT question you're going to get, so it's a good thing. First thing is I read what f of t was, and it was talking about it's the rate that bananas are leaving the table. So if they're leaving the table, I call this LT. And since it came first, I just put it in y1 in my calculator. The second thing here, they tell me GT is going to be the rate that bananas are added back to the display. And since they're being added, I call it ET, the entering rate, just so it matches up with my ET-LT notes. And then they said at time equals 0, there was 50 bananas. That they didn't say it in those words, but they said when the store opened, there was 50 bananas. One last thing to note, know that the leaving rate is from time 0 to 12, but the entering rate is only from time 3 to 12, and that's really important. So for the first 3 hours the stores are opened, nothing is being added. Okay, so let's jump into the question. Part A says how many pounds of bananas are removed from the table during the first 2 hours. Okay, so again, this is part A. We want to know how many pounds of bananas left. Now, this right here, this is the rate that the rate bananas are leaving in bananas per hour. So if you take the area underneath the rate gives you the net change. So if this is bananas per hour, the area underneath this will tell you how many bananas. So we would simply just integrate from time, they say the first 2 hours, so from 0 to 2, f of t dt. Okay? Now, f of t is all of this, and at this point in time, you're just typing this out in your calculator. You could not do this without a calculator. If you don't have a calculator, don't worry about it. As long as you understood this was the setup, you know, that's good enough. And that gives me an answer of 20.0511. Okay. And that's all they want. So that's part A. Let's go to part B now. Alright. So now we're looking at part B. So part B. And the question says find f prime 7 using correct units. Explain the meaning of f prime 7. Okay. So first of all, this question we could do without a calculator, and we are going to do it without a calculator only because the AP exam, while you could use a calculator if you're at home and you don't have one, maybe you'd have to do this. So first of all, if you did have a calculator, all we want to do is to take the derivative of f of t. So I would put this whole equation right here. Okay? So the derivative of f of t at t equals 7. If you're using hotkeys like I am, you would use a y1 here. Okay? And if you type that into the calculator, you would get an answer. And I'm just going to use a not rounded, just negative 8.119. I'm not spending the time to type up my calculator. I'm just looking offline. Technically, there's another digit after here. You need 4. But anyways, that'll work. And let's go ahead and talk about how you do this without a calculator. So if you do not have a calculator, how are you going to take the derivative? And maybe we don't do this whole question. First of all, let's take the derivative of 10. The derivative of 10 is gone. And then, just to remind you, what would I have to do to take the derivative of this next piece? Now, I'm going to call this 1 over 100, t to the third. But anyways, you would have to do the product rule. You would do the first piece times the derivative of the second piece. The derivative of sine u is positive cosine u times chain. Oops, the chain of this, I forgot there's a 1 over 100, so the 3 would actually go into the front and make a 3 over 100 t squared. So that's the first piece, derivative of the second, plus the second piece times the derivative of the first piece. The derivative of this is simply 0.8. And then you'd go back and replace this with a 7, and then you wouldn't simplify it, okay? That's just what you do without a calculator. So ladies and gentlemen, anyways, at this point in time we're done with our answer, but they need to know what does that answer mean in the context of the question. So, to discuss this, I want to quickly go back to something you know. S of t, v of t, a of t. Alright, let's talk about units. Let's say we were driving a car and it was in miles, feet per second. Let's say we decide it's feet per second. Sorry. If we're driving a car, then our speed we were measuring in feet per second, it would look like this, okay? Now, the distance, the position would be in feet, velocity would be in feet per second, and acceleration would be feet per second squared. The reason I want to show you this is whenever you go and take the derivative, you get an extra unit of time on the bottom. And whenever you take the antiderivative, if you went backwards and took the antiderivative, you'd lose a unit of time. So in this problem, this was in bananas per hour. So if this was in bananas per hour, its derivative should be bananas per hour squared. So bananas per hour squared, or bananas per hour per hour. Okay, so when you are giving an explanation of what something means in the context of the problem, you talk about 3 things. And this could easily be on the AP exam. First of all, time. When did it happen? Okay? Second of all, you need a word to describe if something is increasing or decreasing based on the sign. Because this sign is negative, I'm going to say the amount of bananas is decreasing. And then the third thing, so we got time, we've got a word for increasing or decreasing. The third thing is we need our answer with units. And of course you need to talk about the problems. So with that in mind, I'm just going to read off. I'm going to read to you the answer that's directly from online. It says, after the store has been open 7 hours, or at t equals 7, so at t equals 7, and you're writing all this down, at t equals 7, or when the store has been open for 7 hours, that's talking about time. The rate at which bananas are being removed, so this is removing bananas, the rate at which bananas are being removed is decreasing. So that's the word decreasing to talk about the negative. So after the store has been open for 7 hours, the rate at which bananas are being removed from the display is decreasing by, and then they give the answer with units, by negative 8.119 bananas per hour, or bananas per hour squared. So I didn't feel like writing all that down, but if you listened, then you got that answer. And of course, you can always look up all these answers online. All right, let's go to the next question. Part C says, is the number of bananas on the display case increasing or decreasing at time equals 7? And I'm going for my water cup. All right. Remember, we got ET and LT. ET is the rate things are being poured in. LT is the rate things are going out. So if ET is bigger than LT, if you're pouring things faster than they can leak out, the amount goes up. And if the LT is faster than the ET, then it's leaking faster and you can fill it out, the amount goes down. So just which one's bigger, ET or LT? So again, if ET is greater than LT, it's increasing. And if LT is greater than ET, it's decreasing. So all I need to know is what's the entering rate and the leaving rate at time equals 5. So this is already the rate. So that's the entering rate. So I need to find out what is f of 5. And what's the leaving rate? What is g of 5? So whoa, this is the leaving. Sorry, this is the entering. So I'm going to find f of 5 and g of 5. And I'm going to use the hotkeys on my calculator. All you'd have to do is put a 5 here and a 5 here to get those two answers. But I'm trying to speed up the process. So I hit alpha trace, y1. I'm going to use my hotkey and plug in a 5. And here I get 13.7959. And then in y2 I have this one. So I do y2, parentheses 5. And I get 11.5328, and I compare these two. And since f of 5 is greater than g of 5, remember f of 5, f is my leaving rate. F of 5 is greater than g of 5, that means the leaving rate is greater than the entering rate. We would say the amount is decreasing. And that's part C. So the amount is decreasing because f of 5 is greater than g of 5. And while some parts of this question might not be on your AP exam this year at all, they're not even allowed, this is one of the parts that is allowed, comparing the rates to see if some amount is increasing or decreasing. All right, let's go to part D, the last part. All right, and part D says, how many bananas are there at time equals 8? Great. Well, just a quick reminder, the amount at any time t is the initial plus how much you gained minus how much you lost. So we want to know how much is there at time 8. So at time 8, we have the initial, and this is finally where we get to use the fact that we started with 50 bananas, plus how much we gained. The area underneath E of t will tell us how much we gained. But remember, E of t is gt, and that's in y2 in my calculator. But I'm just going to put g of t. I don't feel like writing the whole equation out. Now, it's not from 0 to 8, however. Remember, we are not adding bananas starting at time 0. They do not start adding bananas until time 3. So it's the amount that enters is the amount from time 3 to 8. That'll tell you how much is entered by then, minus how much left. L of t, remember, is this whole equation. Instead of writing this whole equation, I'm just going to put f of t. And we can use 0 to 8. And then I would do 50 plus this. Remember, I'm going to use my hotkey Y2 and my hotkey Y1 to speed things up. And if I do all this, I get 23.3473 pounds of bananas. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.